Don't want to give money to the oligarchs, but love lobbing Scorchers? Do we have a deal for you? MLS Season Pass is back on Apple TV with access to every single MLS match, including Leagues Cup and the entire Audi MLS Cup playoffs with no blackouts. It's not just the games, you get total access to the pre- and post-match MLS 360 whip-around show in both English and Spanish, and get live look-ins and highlights from around the league, as well as full match replays and recaps. Now, you can support our show by visiting lobbingscorchers.com/Apple TV to purchase your subscription and support our show.
lobbingscorchers.com/Apple TV. Please, don't let the oligarchs win.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff. I'm Ari, that's Nico. We got a great show for you guys this morning. Thank you for starting your week up with us. We're going to be talking some Seattle Sounders. We're going to be talking some Major League Soccer, and I'm excited to get into it, Nico. Let's just start right away with this Seattle Sounders Matchday 7 result. The Sounders took a little road trip down to Sunday, San Diego, California. Didn't go that well. Didn't have a good time. The Southern California vacation got ruined 3-0. Got the absolute brakes beaten off them by this expansion side that looks like one of the best teams in the league. But Nico, I have not caught up with you since this result. So I'm kind of dying to hear your thoughts on what we saw in this 3-0 L that the Seattle Sounders took that I think raises even more questions than we already had. How do you size that one up?
Yeah, I think that the surprising thing was the scoreline. I did not expect Seattle to go and get a win at San Diego. Going into this game, I did not like the matchup. I thought that San Diego was the better team, the more structured team. I thought that their pressing was going to be an issue for Seattle. That's why I thought maybe they were going to play a little bit more from transition. I did not expect Bryant to be as aggressive as he was in his own pressing. And I thought maybe he was going to play the San Diego team a little bit deeper. But all in all, the things that we had said going into this game were as clear as day. And if me, just some random guy, knew that the keys to this specific game were being very mindful and focused every single restart, being disciplined on set pieces, being able to play through their press, getting behind that back line and being efficient in transition moments offensively, and being disciplined in transition moments defensively. And Seattle did none of it. The whole game started off on such a naive play. It was a naive play in the second minute. I mean, that's exactly what it was. It was naive. It was irresponsible because you knew exactly what San Diego was going to do every single moment that they had a restart moment, because that was their game plan. That has been their game plan. That's why they've been so good. And the fact that neither Christian Roldan nor Ferreira see the guy that is going to get the ball short, which I think was Chucky, is just mind-boggling. And then when you do go get the player, you get taken out, you freeze two players with one move, and then he literally just gets by them like they're cones on a training field. I mean, there was just so many things to start off that game that were preventable, and that to me are on the tactics, to me are on the coaching, because that should have been priority number one. That should have been, guys, from the moment we get going, let's watch the restarts. Let's watch the quick free kicks. Let's watch the quick corner kicks. And that didn't happen. Or if it did, then the team fell asleep. But I don't know. I guess we'll try to figure that out later on the week and see what exactly was the miscommunication on that play. But let's move on from that. I'm just saying that that's exactly what this game was about. Seattle not doing the fundamentals, Seattle not doing what they were what was clear, the roadmap to getting a result at San Diego, and that's frustrating. We can talk about and decipher little moments here, and talk about Georgie Manungu playing at the 9 and rotating with Jesus Ferreira, which we knew going into this game. Jeremiah and I discussed it on Friday. It was a creative move by a team that does not believe in Ferreira as a 9. And going into the game on Friday, we said, people don't realize how difficult it is to play the 9, and Georgie has never played the 9, and that was very noticeable.
Yeah,
to start off the game, where he was supposed to be, where he was trying to get the ball. And this is not an indictment on Georgie. That's a difficult position to play for a guy that usually, no, let me rephrase that always is more effective, more dangerous in the white spaces, in the flanks, taking on 1v1 players, not getting the ball with his back to goal and trying to link up at that position. So it's a difficult learning curve for you to go and do that. When I saw the potential of Georgia at the 9, I thought that maybe there was going to be a lot more rotation between him and Ferreira, and I guess ultimately it did, but it was a failed experiment. So the reason why they did this, by the way, and I'll cut it short here because I'm blabbing on.
No, you're good.
It's because of what you had mentioned before. Brian wants a plug-in sort of player to take over Jordan and do Jordan things, because it seems to be the only way that Seattle can play. We need a guy that does Jordan stuff, or it's over. We don't have another game plan. There is no other way to get guys going. And when you look at Ferreira's skill set, the 3-4-3 doesn't benefit him. You need to play differently, especially with the sort of players that you have going in this lineup. Maybe if you were to play with straight up wingers in a 4-2-3-1, and look, I get that there's injuries, because I think Pedro showed why he is better up there, specifically when it's in relation to Ferreira, because he could play off of him, because he pins back. He does a better job pinning back the buildup and the push from San Diego, and he was just more versatile. So all in all, I just did not feel like the tactics were necessarily there, and there wasn't a big enough emphasis on what the players needed to do to execute that game plan. So it was just a shit show, for lack of a better word, and it showed from minute 2 of this game.
Minute 1, the game state and the tempo of this game were out of control straight from the jump. And when you're on the road, you can't really play like that ever, usually, at least not to that extent, but especially against this team, which has proven to me one of the most lethal, dynamic teams in the league so far this season. I was very impressed with what I saw from them, but Seattle couldn't have played more into their hands in terms of just the game management. Noah and I were debating this. I seriously doubt that was the plan and how they were instructed to play. But that's what they allowed to happen literally from the first moment the match kicked off. In the 1 minute between when the game kicked off and when San Diego scored the goal, that was already in my head, just the way that it was looking out there. I was like, this is not a sustainable way to approach this game. I really don't think they're going to get a result unless they can calm this down and control it. And they were just not able to do that at all. As far as Georgie at the 9, I guess you guys, saw that or predicted that more than that came out of nowhere to me. My first reaction when I saw the lineup graphic was, I was like, oh, okay, I guess this is I thought it was like a typo or something, but then they went out there and that's how they were lined up. And I just thought it was funny because like you said, it was an experiment. And honestly, now that we're further removed from it, I can respect just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks to an extent. But it didn't work. Like you mentioned, there was the first play where he had his back to goal, where a more conventional number 9 that's sort of what they're able to do. Georgie's not that type of player. And then, yeah, you had the through ball from Jackson Reagan that if it was Jordan Morris on the end of it, that would have been a phenomenal play, but it wasn't. It was Georgie, and he's not really, that's not in his skill set, I think, as we learned. And then they switched Ferreira and Georgie, it looked like to me, in like the 12th minute or something. And I was like, okay. But what did you make of Schmetzer in the post-game press conference when he was asked about that? And he literally used the term grasping at straws to describe why they lined up like that, which is true. Like, that's what the situation that they're in right now. But I guess my thing is, like, there should never be a situation, especially with this team, where you are grasping at straws. Like, if you are grasping at straws at any position at any point, then that means either something has gone wrong with your roster build or how your players are fitting together and playing together. I think it's the latter, especially when as it pertains to the Jesus Ferreira discussion. But I don't know, just when he said that, I was like, yeah, but that's not good. You can't.
Well, that shouldn't be the case. That just shouldn't be the case. And that's kind of my problem, and what I've been preaching consistently is that it feels as if the front office, led by Craig Waibel, built the roster a certain way, and they felt like it was, and we all did, that they had depth, that it was talented, and then Brian is using it completely different of the way that it was meant to be used, and now we're grasping at straws because Jordan is out and the team cannot play without Jordan Morris, and that is as evident as anything that I can remember. It is that simple. No Jordan, no offense, and that is on the coaching staff. Look, if I know that I'm getting Jesus Ferreira, and this is why I've been harping on, and I've talked to Craig Waibel about it, I've asked a bunch of times Brian Schmetzer, I've talked to the pundits, everybody who will hear me, that if you knew you were getting Jesus Ferreira, everyone knew the type of player that he was and where he shines and the way he plays and how he drops back. So there should have been a design play for Jesus Ferreira and a design play for Jordan Morris. Maybe, am I asking too much? Is that too difficult? I'm not going to sit here and tell you whether that is true or not, because I am not in Brian Schmetzer's shoes, but it feels like it should have been the bare minimum to try to maximize the potential of your biggest signing of the offseason, because that's what Jesus was. But when you get that huge acquisition and you're just saying, hey, man, figure it out, play to that sound of our drums and our rhythm, it just feels to me like it's a disservice for the player and it's a disservice to the rest of this group. So going back to the way that the roster is being used, I have heard the term that this roster doesn't feel like it should be played with wingbacks. And maybe that's where we got to start off. I mean, is it time to just switch the tactics? Because something's not working. The whole point, and what I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I thought it was interesting in the preseason that this formation was in place, because it gives Seattle a better opportunity at overloading certain spaces and winning the numerical battle that is the soccer pitch, right? The way you break it down, Seattle's able to get more numbers forward, but, and we had said this quite a few times, it did put Seattle in a vulnerable position anytime that they lose the ball, and they were going to get exploited into certain spaces. And I even asked Brian Schmetzer that if the way that they were pressing and the way that they were building up was more aggressive than before, and he just kind of shook it off, dismissed it. But that's a reality. This team has given up way more goals that I have seen him give up in the first 7 goals of the season. Everything I can remember. Maybe I'm way off here, but it feels as if they've conceded so many goals to start off this year. And a lot of it has to do with the way that they're building up, the things that you need to do to pin back the opposition, because your wingbacks are so far up that any time that you lose the ball, there's a huge gap in the middle, and you're forcing your pivots to do so much work where they can't even really see where it's coming from. And there's so much there is so much space that could be used behind those wing backs. And you saw it yesterday where I think it's a pass from Ferreira. Manungu gets dispossessed. It's one pass across behind Nuhu, and it's over. It's Dreyer on the ball. He crosses it in, and Godoy gets the second goal of the game. So those things are what this formation makes you vulnerable. So if the concepts are not working, let's simplify it. Maybe that's what's going to happen. You got to simplify it, because over the course of this season, the concepts are not being executed, and that to me tells me that maybe it's not a good fit. And maybe the things that you thought were going to work are not worth continuing, because if I'm not getting offense off of a formation that's supposed to give me offense, and I'm compromising the defense, then let's figure something else out, because it's just not working.
Yeah, I think we're at the point where the start to the season defensively is concerning. I mean, this was a team that was the best defensive team in the league last year, conceded the fewest goals. We're not used to seeing them concede goals like this. And really, it dates back to the preseason, which at the time I kind of dismissed as preseason. You're probably playing a lot more aggressively just to try stuff and figure out what you want to do offensively. So I wasn't concerned about that at the time, but clearly it's leaked into the season. And like this situation in this game was a scenario where this team has usually been pretty good at bearing down, grinding out results. And like, if you had been able to 0-0 or 1-1 that game against that team, that would have been a pretty good result, honestly. But when you are getting that exposed that much defensively, especially letting a team that's as lethal as this get out on the counter as much as they were, you're just asking to get punished for that. Like, obviously, conceding a goal in the second minute puts you way behind the 8 ball. But like I was saying earlier, based on the game state and the tempo of that game, that they were just asking to get scored on. So that's not good. What do you like? You were hitting on it a little bit there, but do you think the defensive struggles are just down to what you were talking about tactically, or like does that stuff cause the individual errors that we're seeing? And
Yeah.
how do they fix this?
No, that's exactly why I think that you need to assess that way deeper. And the mistakes that Jackson Reagan is making, and Brian, I think in the post conference called that transition defense at times is just effort. It's not just effort; it's also field awareness. I mean, that third goal, I believe, Jackson Reagan just doesn't check his hip. He's not looking. He's in a foot race that he can't win, and he's not anticipating his movement. He's not anticipating the pass, and he just gets caught up. So I feel like, again, because of how high your line is and the way that your patterns are kind of set up right now, you're really putting a lot of pressure on those 3 defensive players. And look, I'm sure that Brian is saying, look, I have one of the best center backs in the league. I can expect him to do A, B, and C. But look, last season, we had the best duo of center backs playing a 4-man backline and doing things a little bit different. There are wrinkles to this offense and defense, regardless of how many times Brian might dismiss the question, because their build out a lot of times is with 3 players. But the way it works has been different. A lot of times you used to have the center backs, the midfielders have to kind of come in and at times become that third person in the build out. A lot of times the way that it worked before, it seemed like there was a more fluid way to get out of the back. And for whatever reason, right now it's not working. And again, anytime that you lose the ball in transition, you seem so much more vulnerable than you did last season. So to me, it is the tactics. It is the formation. It hasn't been working. It had not been working at times in the preseason. And we thought that, hey, you know what, is a new setup and they'll figure it out. But if they haven't, maybe it just doesn't fit. So that's the reason why I kind of call out the tactics. And simplifying this soccer module might be the only way that you're going to be able to start getting some results. Because right now, look, that 3v2 in midfield of Traverskov, Godoy, and De La Torre just
field day
owned Christian Roldan and Obed. I mean, they got owned completely. Yeah. And even when Seattle would create good moments, because you have a new guy at the 9, and there isn't really a continuity item here, and I think the word continuity gets overused, but I love to use it. I don't care. There is that moment I think you mentioned, but it's not a through ball from Jackson Reagan. It's a great tackle by Nuhu. I think it's in the 14th minute.
Yep.
We get the ball back in transition. It's a quick pass to Obed. Obed has space in front of him. He puts a through ball to Georgie, and Georgie is not going to where the through ball is going. There's no communication, and you lose that opportunity. There's another one where Yammer similarly dispossesses Chucky Lozano with a great tackle, gets the ball forward in a great pass, and nothing happens because there's just simply no quick passing, there is no delivery, and there's no decision-making, decisiveness, and the play dies. So that's what you needed to do to beat San Diego, and the concepts are just not working. So those are the things that, to me, when I hear, oh, this roster is trash, and, you know, they're going to go nowhere, I feel like it's crazy, because this is not a talentless roster. Ferreira might not be playing good soccer right now, but to me, again, is the lack of effort to adapt him into the game. But he's a talented player. Albert Russner's a talented player. Christian Roldan and Obed are talented players. The talent is there. I just feel like it's just not being used correctly.
Yeah. The idea that Ferreira is just bad, which a lot of people have been throwing around, which I get coming off a result like that, the takes are going to be flying, but like you can't score 50 plus goals in this league, like for no reason and be bad. That's just not we know he's a good player. He just hasn't been fitting in on this team yet. And they're not using him in a way that maximizes his skills, clearly, and it's clearly more difficult than we would think or like, but that's just the reality of the situation right now. I wanted to hat tip San Diego though, real quick, and then get to a couple questions from chat. But Nico, this team looks like one of the best teams in the league right now. And it's funny because no one predicted that. If you look at the preseason predictions that everyone likes to screenshot, they were down near the bottom of the West table. This was not like a Atlanta or LAFC situation where people looked at it beforehand and were like, okay, this team's going to slide in and be one of the elite teams right away. I think most people had San Diego as like a 1.0 points per game type of team. So I do think you have to give them a lot of credit for having a clear idea of the identity that they wanted to instill, going out, getting the players that fit that identity and the tactics that they wanted to play, and then their coaching staff getting the players that they brought in to execute it at an extremely high level. It's like someone brought up the point, and they're right. Like, we've been talking so much about Seattle's process of fitting in Jesus Ferreira and how much more of a slog that's been than we would have thought or hoped. This San Diego team got together as a whole team for the first time, like in preseason, and they're playing like that, which that's impressive. Like, I don't
Mikey
know.
Barris just knew what he wanted out of his philosophy. He clearly did a great job at ingraining it into every single one of those players. And if you look at, think as simple as their build up and their build out, it's phenomenal. I mean, look, his build-ups usually with six field players plus the goalkeeper, who I think did a great job at it. And he didn't know how many numbers Seattle got forward. They were keep away. They were playing keep away with the press. I mean, it was so good. And that goes back to the coaching. Seattle typically builds out with 5, and at times it seems very easy for those spaces to get occupied. I think that Brian should look into some of the patterns that that San Diego did, because Mikey Veras put a clinic on exactly how you invite pressure and how you play through it. And Seattle kind of got caught up in the trap. And yes. Even with Seattle would press well, and it will result in a foul, and it will result on a throw-in, then that quick restart would create a moment of transition, and they were on their way. So, oh man, it's just it's tough to not be amazed by how precise their passing were, how good their spacing was, how they play off of each other. Franco Negri, to me, was underused in Miami, and clearly so, because there's a bunch of talent over there. But Franco Negri with San Diego FC looks like the Franco Negri from Godoy Cruz in Argentina. And because of the way they use him, he can do what he wants. He gets forward where he needs to. There's always somebody occupying the space behind him. There is a shift on that side where he does the overlaps and the underlaps. Chucky Lozano understands exactly what he has to do to stretch out defenses. I mean, everybody has a duty and everybody executes it precisely. I talked about this on Friday. Some people don't think that Chucky Lozano is a big name. That's fine. If you don't think that he's a big name, that's all right. But what makes this team good isn't the big names. It is the structure. It is the collective of how well they understand their system and how they execute it, man. And that's what you saw in the first 45 minutes of this game.
Chucky wasn't even playing for the first few weeks of the season, and they still looked like that. It looked like they were playing the game at a different speed. You know what it reminded me of is like the 2019 LAFC team that was one of the best teams in MLS history. That's what it looked like when that team was firing on all cylinders. Which is crazy to think about, given like I said, that they just got together like a couple months ago and they're already playing like that. I think it's the most impressive expansion launch I've seen relative to expectations. So I do think you got to give them credit for that. Let's hit a couple questions from chat here. Nico, I'll toss this one to you. Asul says, going off what Nico is saying, is it time then for the team to switch back to the 4-2-3-1?
I think so. I think that you cannot continue to run head first against the exact same wall, and maybe you look for a door that might be on either side of that wall, or maybe you just go over the wall. You can't keep doing the same thing, is what I mean, right? Excuse my analogies. But that's exactly it. I feel like you've given this enough time to figure out that it's just simply not working. And I do think that there has to be more done to get your most talented players to be successful on the field. And this current formation is just not doing it. It's simply not doing it.
Josh says, Sporting got rid of Vermees. If results continue this way, Sounders have to move on from Schmetz. Like I'm not going to say Schmetz out, after one bad L. But I will say, like, that type of loss, if it becomes a trend, that is the type of that's like it's one thing to take an L, Nico. It's one thing to take an L. They took L's last year where they weren't playing well offensively, but they were at least competitive. They were competing in those games. The bounces weren't going their way. They weren't finishing, but the defense was locking down. They were getting a lot of clean sheets. They were grinding out points. Once you start taking multi-goal defeats, and if that starts happening with week in, week out regularity, that's the type of stuff that does cause jobs to be on the line, not just for coaches, like for the guys on the team too. So like they need to not like, I can grant that without Jordan Morris and De La Vega and with the Areola injury, that there could be some time that they need to adapt to that, especially with the Ferreira integration still being a process. But you can't get boat raced like that. And we're not used to seeing Seattle teams get boat raced like that. Like, even when they have downturns in form and they're dropping points, they're usually pretty much always at least competitive. And this game wasn't competitive, really, like from the very beginning. I guess you could say from minutes 2 to 40 was a time period where the Sounders were kind of hanging with it. But realistically, like there was that sequence, Noah and I were talking about this, that sequence at the end of the first half before Chucky scored, they gave up 4 breakaways in a row. 4. Like I don't think I've ever seen a Sounders team do that. I think that might have been the worst 6 minutes that I've ever seen them play. Is that a hot take?
No, it's not a hot take. It's one of the worst you've seen because it compounds the issues of a team that does certain things well, and although maybe you thought you were prepared, you clearly weren't, and every single weakness that your formation currently has was exposed. So I think you're absolutely right. Now, I did want to reference the Brian out hashtag and what people are kind of talking about. Look, Brian's been on the hot seat for quite some time, and he always seems to come out on top. Last season, obviously, getting as far as he did, ended up giving the front office in a certain way and out because they did extend his contract even before the playoffs. So the playoff run didn't matter. It was kind of like, we believe in you, regardless of results here moving forward. But then we kind of saw that with Peter. So I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not a possibility, but I do feel like the possibility is very small. This team believes in Brian Schmetzer. They have believed in him for a very long time. You got Club World Cup, you got Leagues Cup, you got a whole bunch of different tournaments that I don't think that the sudden shift of management is going to do anything for it. But I do hope Brian Schmetzer does some self-criticism and deciphers what it is that needs to be done, and doesn't just think that it is about doing the exact same things better. And because he mentioned this in the post-game conference, his team making plays. If your team is not making plays, yes, sometimes you can blame the players and you can say they should have put that ball away, they should have made that pass better, they should have switched the point of attack quicker, and that would have created a better opportunity. But when it becomes repetitive, that's when you got to look at yourself as a manager and say, what am I doing that's not installing those concepts better? And why is it that the team is not clicking better? Why is it that the team's not starting off on the front foot? Those are the things that I feel like need to be looked at. And Brian Schmetzer, sure enough, has sounded very confident in the past that he's not going anywhere. I've asked him directly in the past about it. Are you in the hot seat? Nope. Until Adrian calls me, I don't have nothing to worry about. And that's his mentality. I'm sure that he's confident that he's going to be in this team for a long time. But I do get the criticism from people, and I had been on that camp last season where I was saying, did that course of Brad Schmetzer come to an end? Did it go stale? The emphasis of his voice in the locker room, is it time for a change? And then it wasn't. They figured it out, they fixed it. Western Conference Finals, and that's it, right? So eventually, when the team decides whether or not he's the solution or not, I guess we'll talk about that at that time. But at this particular moment, I'm not going to entertain it. I don't think it's a possibility right now. I think it's, I think although a possibility is very minimal that it will happen, so I'm not going to entertain it too much.
Equity and job security are earned through winning and trophies. And Schmetzer has done that. He is a proven winner in the league. He's shown that he can lead teams to contending and to winning trophies and winning big games. But
that credit line is getting to its limit, right?
It only goes so far. And I think any scenario where that credit runs out, it would have to be if that game that we just watched, if that starts happening week in, week out, then yeah, you like, everyone knows that those conversations are unavoidable at that point. If they can course correct and even get back to what they were doing last season, where it might not be the most electric attacking soccer you've ever seen without Jordan Morris out there, but they can at least start stacking some points and getting some results, then I think like that's just the reality of where things stand with personnel. Like you could switch the coach to anybody and that would just be the reality of the situation. But I think there's no doubt, there's no question that the coaching staff has to look at how they're adapting to playing without Jordan Morris and try and figure there. You can't tell me that there's no way that it can't look better than that. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
No, 100%. And look, being a head coach is difficult because ultimately it all kind of falls on you. I'll never forget Siggy telling me that coaches have to have their luggage packed at all times because anytime they'll be moved on, be sacked, dismissed. So that's just the reality of the role. But when it comes to Brian and what you just mentioned, again, I love my analogies. It feels like Brian Schmetzer has been doing minimum payments for the last 3 seasons, and that limit on that credit card is getting ready to bust. So unless you do more to double up on that and really get that balance down, that's exactly why people start to get upset and start to question the methods and the tenure of a coach.
Yeah, it is. We had these conversations last year when the team wasn't playing well. And then to be fair, they course corrected. They ended up winning 16 games. They got a top 4 seed in the West, and they made the West final, almost made MLS Cup. So there's still a lot of time for that to manifest. And I guess my thing is like, I understand that the injury situation is tough right now, especially with De La Vega and Jordan Morris being out at the same time. That was pretty brutal. And Paul Arriola, losing him for the season was pretty brutal. It was probably never going to be as good as it could have been, if you had everyone healthy for this period of time. But that doesn't rationalize getting slammed like that. Like, there was more than enough on the field, like you mentioned earlier, talent-wise, to prevent that from happening. Like, I don't really see much of a way around that. Joe says SDFC know who they are and how to play. The Sounders do not. Exactly. I think that is pretty much dead accurate. Question from P. Magno. Nico, do you agree with Paul Rothrock that this is rock bottom? Paul Rothrock said that after the game. He said this has to be rock bottom. I agree with him. What do you think of that?
It is rock bottom. It is rock bottom because if you wait for rock bottom to break through the floor and go beyond that, then that's a huge issue. And I love that a young guy, a guy that is not the face of the franchise, a guy that is by no means one of the team captains, has the cojones to say something like that. I applaud the fact that he's saying, hey, let's get this out in the universe that this is rock bottom, because it should be. Like you mentioned, Ari, there is no reason why a team with this much depth should go into San Diego and get played out of the park and have no response. Because look, this is the exact same team that scored 3 goals in 20 minutes against LAFC team that had everybody, if I'm not mistaken, that game. But then
LAFC were rotated that game, and that people are saying that performance doesn't count because LAFC was rotated. Seattle was literally equally rotated. I don't understand that.
No. I'm talking San Diego.
Okay.
No, San Diego. I was saying, yeah. So the same San Diego team
did the same thing to LAFC.
Did the same thing to LAFC. The difference, though, was that LAFC punched back.
Yes.
And they were able to get back into that game. Seattle's lack of response is why it seems rock bottom. Because if you get hit the way you did, and you're unable to just get back in the fight, where is the resilience? Where is everything that we've been preaching, talking to Brian Schmetzer, everything that Brian Schmetzer has been preaching over the last couple of seasons about his team, where was it? And that's why it is rock bottom, because you got outplayed, outperformed, and simply you had no way to manage the situation. And now, if you thought that without Jordan Morris you couldn't perform to a certain level, then maybe the tactics should have been more conservative going into the Lions' den, if you will. Maybe you should have played deeper. Maybe you should have tried to mirror what San Diego was going to give you in some sort of way and bring back down the playing field a little more, even it out. But that just wasn't the case.
It's a great point that you make. San Diego, literally the weekend before this, did the exact same thing to LAFC. Got right on top of them, 3-0 in the first half. And when you go down 3-0 in the first half, I said this on Blue Sky, but it's not even about the result at that point. It's about dignity. It's about salvaging whatever dignity you have left, leaving that stadium with your relative dignity intact. LAFC, like you said, they punched back. They scored a couple goals. They left that stadium with dignity. Seattle, I don't know. I don't think you can really say the same thing, man. Like, the second half was the only positive I think that you could take from the second half was that De La Vega got back out there and he looked pretty good. But if you could have gotten a goal or two and still lost the game, like I said, you leave with dignity. But yeah, the response, LAFC kind of showed how you need to respond in a situation like that. And I don't really think you could say that Seattle did that. So yeah, no, it's a good point. We got a $2 super chat from James. James, thank you. Appreciate you, man. Is Waibel on the hot seat? So many flop signings. Nico, what do you think of that?
Look, just as it'd be unfair to say that Brian is being in the hot seat without putting Craig Waibel in the hot seat. So I would say yes. I think that just as we give Brian some leadway because of the winnings and at times because of injuries, I think that we can give Craig Waibel a little bit of a pass because he is obligated to go shop for Ferraris with a credit line that doesn't have enough on it. There's clearly a lack of a budget for him to go and make a difference. Has he made some signings that are questionable? Absolutely. Or not questionable, just plain old bad. I mean, we could talk about Eber. We could talk about, well, not necessarily Misowski, because, I mean, you paid nothing for him necessarily. The Pedro de la Vega, still to be determined. So yes, I understand why people would put him on the hot seat, but I feel like because he doesn't have the resources that Garth and Chris had at one point in time, because we're always going to compare those front offices. Although I will say that obviously Garth Lagerwey is the best GM I've ever talked to, and to me, the best GM in MLS over the last decade or a little bit over that. And Chris Henderson, very much likely being the Shaq to his Kobe, is right there and then right close to him with the exact same pedigree. Their budget was higher. And maybe that is on the GM, where he's like, look, man, I can't continue to compete with this budget. So either you give me what I need or I got to go. Because I feel like that's why one of the main reasons why Garth Lagerwey stepped away. He knew what was coming. He knew that he wasn't going to get no more money, and obviously got a way better offer and a way better team with a whole bunch of way better team in terms of cash and obviously his ability to do what he wanted to do. But yeah, I mean, Craig definitely in the hot seat. We'll see what happens with this U22. I feel like that's the hill he's going to die on, and it all really depends on whether that is a home run or a strikeout, on whether he's out or not, essentially.
This is the first season where I feel like we can get a really good evaluation on Craig Waibel. It's gonna come down to if they can figure this Ferreira thing out, and if they can keep De La Vega on the field, and those guys being impact, move the needle type players for this team, and then also what he does with the U22 spot. Once we get through this season, and Ryan Kent as well, like all those factors, we're going to see how that works out for the rest of the season. If those guys become impact players, help this team be a contending team, and in the mix for trophies and winning trophies, then I think the evaluation will actually turn positive. If that does not turn out to be the case, then yeah, like there's going to be those conversations and it's going to be merited. So like to me, it's just like you got to wait for this season to play out. Like I understand if you look at the track record to this point, Aber and Moose, it's like I don't really read as much into those. Like, you know, obviously it would have been nice to have Aber banging in goals, but like I think a GM is judged on their big swings that they take. Yep. And so like that's what I'm going to wait personally to judge Craig Waibel on.
No, I'm with you.
I think like to get back to the question, like it's going to be answered based on what we see the rest of this season.
But the seed is hot. Obviously, for me, you and I, we're both going to wait and see how hot that seed gets, because you're absolutely right. I have to give credit, and I have given credit to Craig Waibel for turning a bad situation in Paul Arriola to ultimately a situation that maybe got you to find a diamond in the middle of the street in terms of Ryan Kent. If he comes in and is the guy that he's portrayed to be, and the guy that over the last week has been unreal and looks to be at a different level than most guys on the field, and if finally at some point Jesus and Brian Schmetzer start seeing eye to eye and this coaching staff finally is able to squeeze the potential out of this player, then we'll see how it goes for Craig Waibel. Now, if none of that works out, was it the coach? Was it the GM? Either way, we're going to base it on results. And if neither one of those players is able to shine, then, you know, it's going to be clearly an indictment on Craig Waibel as a GM.
De La Vega was a big swing so far, a huge miss. There's a difference between being a miss because of injury and being a miss because of talent. It's been a miss so far because they haven't been able to keep him on the field. I don't think you can say that it's a miss yet based on the ability of the player to be an impact player. Now, being missing because of injury is still a miss. And if they can't keep him on the field this year, then yeah, it will be considered a bust based on that 100%. But I still think that this is the crossroads right now. If they can keep him on the field the rest of the season and he moves the needle and becomes an impact player for this team and helps this team contend, I think that's still possible. And then at that point, the narrative will be flipped, and the signing will be considered a hit. However, they need to keep him on the field. Like that's pretty much a necessity at this point. It's been a necessity, but like you can't afford at all to get back in the cycle that you were in last year, where you were ramping him up, having him come back, and he was pulling his hammy, pulling his quad, and just can never be on the field. So I think like there's no doubt you're right. Like it's been a miss to this point, but I think there's still time for that. It's about what happens the rest of this season. Nico, this conversation I think is a good segue into the next thing I wanted to hit here, which you and Craig Waibel had a bit of a spirited exchange at practice. Was that last week? Yeah, last week. You were grilling him about Ferreira, and he was didn't take too kindly to the line of questioning. He got a little testy with you. So what I wanted to do was I played it on one of my last streams, but I'm going to play it again so we can all watch it together because it's a fun little clip. And then I was going to pick your brain on the line of questioning and then your thoughts on the answer that he gave. So I'm going to pull that onto the screen right now, and we're going to give it a watch.
To go off of what Jada's kind of harping at, my question is, was there any misconception on the profile that was Jesus Ferreira? Because the need was a striker, because you only have two, right? It's Musovski and it's Jordan. So where was the misconception or the misunderstanding between what maybe Brian wanted in his style of play, in his soccer module, and what Ferreira provided that's kind of taken him so long to adapt to? Because he just doesn't seem to be fitting it necessarily.
I guess you're relying on stats right now. I think it's a pretty short window of time to judge any player, frankly. But I think his goal scoring was attractive. The fact that it hasn't translated yet is concerning, but not. I don't know if I'd go as far as you went to insinuate anything abysmal or, like needing a grave, which I feel like that's about as far as you went with that. I think he's a good player. I think, like I said, I think we've got a lot of good players, but we still need to get a full healthy squad to really figure out how everyone fits. The chances, again, over 50 shots in our last 3 games, only 17 on frame, only 1 goal. I don't think it's one player. I'll be honest. I think if we're going to ask that question, we need to be asking about the entire attacking half of the field right now and how much responsibility each one of those players wants to take on their shoulders and wants to stand in front of cameras and own.
Yeah, I was just going off of what Brian kind of had insinuated after the San Jose game, where he clearly said that Lisowski looked better at that position and Ferreira looked better dropping back.
Yeah, against San Jose, Jesus dropping back and Danny in that game, I think was obviously a good move. The second half was much more productive than the first.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has to do more with that matchup than maybe the overall. But again, I don't interview Brian after games. You guys do, so I'll let him answer that.
Whoo! I got a little testy. Nico, I thought this would be a fun little opportunity to give the audience a window into what's going through your mind when you're asking the tough questions like that, which is an important role that you play on the beat. Someone like, especially with how the things are going right now, like he might not like it, but those questions are coming. So I think good on you for asking it. But what was sort of your impetus behind the timing of asking him this at this exact juncture when, his whole thing was like, it's too early to say. So, but anyway, what was kind of going through your mind with that?
Yeah, I mean, it was clear to me, and, the next game kind of gave me the right away, or it proved me right.
Yeah.
Is that Brian Schmetzer seems to be leaning towards pulling the plug at 9 Ferreira at the 9. Striker Ferreira is in, critical condition. I mean, he's literally getting ready to just pull the plug on it.
He's starting Jordan.
He's already Jordan. So if that's not critical condition, then I don't know what is. So that's where I was going at. I was asking him, and this is why I believe exactly what I said earlier in the show, that there seemed to be a miscommunication between what Craig Waibel wants and what Brian wants. Because Craig is saying, no, it was just about that game, when I clearly knew that's not the case. And he was like, no, it's just about that game. It was about the matchup. I feel like you're reading too much into the stats. It wasn't about the stats. And it wasn't about his play necessarily. It was about what the coach is clearly leaning towards because of the way he uses Ferreira, because of the kind of temporary solutions that he's trying to find, because he just feels like Ferreira doesn't fit. So when I hear that, to me, the reason of the line of questioning, and I got to give Jada Evans as well some credit, because she started the line of questions, and that's why I kind of go off of that, because I felt like she was not getting the answers, and me and her kind of team up. And by the time I'm asking questions, Craig's already a little irritated, and maybe not irritated because he's not that guy. He's a little defensive. Yeah. And he's the thing that I do like about Craig is that he'll tell it how it is, and he gets defensive on it. And he's like, nah, man, I feel like you're just pulling the plug, but it's not me. I'm not the one throwing dirt over the dead body. It's somebody else. So to me, the whole point of the question is the need was a striker, and that was obvious. You lost Raul Ruidiaz. You needed a striker. Even if you had not lost Raul Ruidiaz, you need to go bring another striker, and that's why you brought Ferreira. That's the way you, Craig Waibel, said to us that Ferreira had the capability to be elite in any single one of those top positions. But now we're playing Georgie at the 9. So where is the misconception of the profile? Because again, we all knew the type of player that Ferreira was. So was the GM wrong, or is the coach wrong? That's all that I was getting at. And Craig very diplomatically just puts it on Brian and says, you guys are the ones that interview Brian, so ask him. But to me, it's clear as day that the roster, the way it's built, it is not the way it's being used, and that lack of cohesiveness is one of the factors of why it hasn't worked and why Brian Schmetzer is saying that he's having to grasp at straws, although he has a DP level talent in Jesus Ferreira. So that was the reason of the questioning. That's why I was so, incised into not letting him off the hook with what he had already answered Jada Evans, and then what he said in my first question, because he was trying to put it on me. But it wasn't my opinion, and it wasn't my idea or me looking at stats. It was going off of the game that just happened.
Yeah, it's how the team has been lining up and how it's looked on the field. So, I mean, I think on some level you had to know the question was coming. I think it got there sooner than he was saying was merited, but I don't think so, man. We're 7 games into the season, and like it would be one thing. My thing with the Ferreira right now is like we just need to see progress, whether it's at the 9 or anywhere else. Like it needs to look better and more cohesive from one week to the next, and I don't really think that you can say that that's the case right now. It looked a lot better in the second half against San Jose, like Craig was mentioning, but that was when he got moved out wide, and it hasn't been consistent at all. So I mean, that's what they got to figure out, man. Wade, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. Appreciate you, buddy. Waibel stated in a fan chalk talk last season, I signed the player, Brian coaches them. He has no input in the building of the team. Can you confirm that this is the case? Yeah, Nico, what do you know about that dynamic as far as who has ultimate say or control?
It's absolutely that. And again, Craig is not going to give you an answer that's not real. He's not about going around the bush. That's exactly the dynamic. He brings in the players, and he doesn't tell them how to coach them, how to put them on. He's, said in the past, I got to make sure that I'm careful with bringing in certain U22s because, will he play them? Will he not? I got to make sure that when I do go and get this U22, he can come in and contribute. So I do think that that's the case. And to me, that's not the way it should be. A GM should be able – the GM's your boss, ultimately. And that's plain and simple. The GM should be telling the head coach what to do and where to play in a certain sense. Maybe not the style, maybe not the module, maybe not the concepts, but the players, you're saying, hey, man, I'm bringing this guy. You come up with a way to bring him in. You come up with a way to get him going. And if you don't, man, then, I got to find someone else who will. It's as simple as that. And Garth Lagerwey used to be that dude because, look, Garth Lagerwey was the guy that he was nice and he had this, look about him like he was the sweetest guy in the world. That dude, when he came down to negotiating and when he came down to you checking his status, he'll let you know real quick. And him and Brian had their moments where Garth was letting him know that he is the man. He is the boss. Yeah. And you might need a little bit of that, man. So although I appreciate Craig Waibel wanting his head coach to succeed and to have his own light and have his own, ability to influence the game and the roster. At the end of the day, man, you're bringing in the players. So you got to let him know exactly what it is that this player is here to do. Because if you bring in a striker, because there's a need for a striker, and now you're playing him out wide or you're playing him as a cam, then that sucks for you. Because now you have an unbalanced roster.
Yeah. I refuse to believe that there's just like no way to make Ferreira an effective and productive member of this team. We know there is a years-long track record of him being a not just a good player in the league, but a best 11 player in the league. So I think that it's clearly not a talent issue. I think what happened was that it ended up being 2 players who need to play the same role in Rusnak and Ferreira. I didn't foresee that as an issue when they traded for Ferreira, but do you think that they should have foreseen that more than it turned out?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And again, I feel like a lot of this, in my opinion, does fall on Brian because, like I've been saying, he wants a plug-and-play player that's going to do what Jordan does rather than I'm going to plug in Ferreira and I got to change the way I play. Maybe I play with two wingers and I make sure that I have a certain setup so those guys are higher up the field. And when he drops, those guys are able to make those diagonals runs more consistently or whatever the case may be. But I just don't feel like there's been enough of an emphasis. And maybe I'm unfairly criticizing that point. And look, I've been meaning to talk to Freddie Juarez for quite some time, but I have not got him. I'm hoping that this week I do. But I do want to ask him, what is it that has been tried to get Ferreira going? Because it feels like you're playing away from his skill set and you're not utilizing him the way you should. So although the player has part of the culpability in maybe some runs, his efforts, or whatever it might be, there is a lot of it that goes into the coaching staff. Because if we, and I think we both agree that Jesus Ferreira is a good player, if he's not being used correctly, then that falls on the coach.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about this, but Albert Rusnak picked up an injury in this game. He was in the San Diego game. He was subbed off at halftime. So adductor
Alex Roldan as well.
Yeah, Alex Roldan as well. But as it pertains to Ferreira, it looks like adductor you're usually looking at least a couple weeks out. So I think we're gonna see Ferreira take over that position, and my prediction is that it's going to look a lot better because that's where he's naturally been the most effective throughout his career. So I think theoretically you're actually set up to absorb that injury much better than they've been able to absorb the Jordan Morris injury. But that doesn't solve the problem. It solves the problem like in the short term while Rusnak's out. But then when he's back, I mean, honestly, the more we talk about it, the more I feel like to get your best lineups on the field, like you have to bring Ferreira off the bench, like, and have him be the super sub and not really play him and Rusnak together, which that is not good. Like that's you brought in Ferreira to be like one of the alphas on this team, and he was not brought here for that role. So
you create two problems. One is you having $1 million plus of your salary cap on the bench, just like you did last season with $3 million at Raul Ruiz, but you also don't have a good, effective option for Jordan Morris. Is he going to play every game then? We're just going to bring him back and we're going to run the wheels of the bus one more time until he gets injured and then do it again?
Yeah.
Because it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. So that's exactly what it all goes back to my interaction with Craig Waibel is the roster is clearly not correctly constructed. I don't want to call it poorly constructed because I was talking to Jeremiah. He didn't like that term, but it's not constructed to the best of its abilities because you have two strikers then. That's all you have. And that's just not a positive. Because if Jordan Morris needs to be the guy and then Misowski, who lowers your bar significantly, is your other option, Ferreira was supposed to be the guy that could come in and keep the team at that high level with that high potential at the 9, but not enough has been done to make sure that that's the case. So
there's no way that they do anything with this U22 spot other than sign a striker of the Jordan Morris mold skill set.
No, right? That's true.
Like they have.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to track who that ends up being, and I trust that you're gonna be on that. So I think that's, if you're looking for something that could help the situation, I think it would be that. It's just that it's pretty clear right now that the vision that they had for how Ferreira and Rusnak and the whole attacking band were going to fit and play together, it has not come to fruition. And there's not a lot of time to figure it out. Like we are very early in the season, but like I said, like you gotta see progress. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'll be looking for in this FC Dallas game. That's a good segue into into this FC Dallas game. Let's talk about that a little bit, because this is actually an interesting little grudge match. Whoever wins this game won the trade, Nico. That's how I'm looking at it. In all seriousness, though, Leo Chu has been playing some good ball for them, man. He scored a game-winning goal for them like a week ago, and Eric Quill down there, shout out New Mexico United, seems like he's starting to give Leo Chu a full complement of minutes. Leo Chu's got more goals than Ferreira this year, but anyway, Nico,
I think just one.
What did you say?
But it is just one goal. I mean, that's where the bar is right now.
Yeah, exactly. We need Ferreira to tie Leo Chu in terms of goal output. You got any other thoughts on this game or this FC Dallas team? Like, what are your expectations for what would be a successful game and result on the road at FC Dallas?
You got to be able to score more than one goal, or at least score a goal. I mean, that's how low the bar is right now.
Yep.
This is a team that gave Atlanta. I just watched that game this weekend, and they gave Atlanta some issues, and they were able to really minimize Latalad, and they were able to really bracket Sabatime on the left side, and they did a great job defensively. Clearly, you have a guy in Lucho Acosta that can break your scheme with one pass at any moment. He can break your scheme with a mid-range shot at any moment. So this is a quality team, and they do have quality players. Peter Musa is a guy that is relentless, that's physical, that I will say that this defense has held in the past, and one that I remember one of the games, J. Marco Matandrada said he likes to be faced with those physical sort of strikers, because he feels like he could win that battle every single time. But it's still a quality team. So at Dallas, I do expect it to be a low-scoring affair. So again, to me, the bar for Seattle is just show me a better offense. And the positives are that Jordan Morris should be available for this game.
Oh, okay.
Don't know if he'll be ready to start, but he'll definitely be on the bench. So at some point, you might see Jesus and Jordan again, which has been the only formula that has worked this season for the team to score goals. But how that gets set up now with Albert being injured, is Masowski with Ferreira playing behind him, that's probably what's going to be the solution. But how does that work, and how consistent can that offense be? That's what I'm going to be looking at. Defensively, I really hope that this was just a matter of a team that was able to expose you in a certain way because of the players that they had. That's not Dallas. Dallas doesn't play that system. They don't play in that manner. They're a lot more slow paced in their build-up. So I feel like Seattle will have a decent game defensively, but all eyes are going to be on the attack. And can Brian Schmetzer figure out a way to get that going?
De La Vega made his return against San Diego and looked good. Like, I thought he was, it wasn't incredible. They didn't score a goal, but he was running around. He was making some stuff happen. So I think that, like I said, that's the only positive that you can take out of that San Diego game. Do you have any?
Rebecca White also had a little bit of a cameo debut. Not debut, but I guess season debut maybe. But he came in, had some minutes, looked okay. He's a player that does give you something else that you might need, because Paul Rothrock is another player that cannot play every single game of every single minute, and he seems to be the only wing back that Brian Schmetzer trusts, aside from Alex Roldan, who now is also injured. So how do you figure that part out? I mean, clearly, Cosa Rienzi is the solution, is a guy that gets forward very easy, very consistently. But again, we'll see how all that pans out, because you got to play two-way ball, and you got to be able to figure that part out. So I think that Reed Baker-Whiten does give you another option that you might need.
Do you think De La Vega starts this game or comes off the bench? I feel like he's got to come off the bench, right?
Oh, man. I feel like he should start, but I don't want him to start. Like, I feel like he should start.
Running. I'm like, no, don't pull your hamstring.
It's a little bit nerve-wracking, right? He looked really good. He played 30 minutes. Yeah. So do you start him playing 45 and see how it goes from there? or do you just kind of slow it down? If you had Albert, I tell you definitely keep him on the bench. But without Albert, you might need something else to help associate Ferreira and help him move around and give you a little bit of a spark in that offense. But let's just say that it's probably the most conservative thing and the safest bet is to just play him off the bench.
That's you. This is, like I said earlier, like this is the crossroads. You have to keep him on the field for the rest of this season. I don't know if that's possible, but like if it's just the cycle of muscle injuries again, then the ceiling of your team is capped right there. So much hinges on him being available. And like the fact that he already got him another muscle injury early in the season is not good. That's not a good sign. And they got to do whatever. I don't know if you bring in like a Oracle doctor or something like that, but they need to keep him on the field. Nico, as we wrap it up here, I wanted to hit some CONCACAF Champions Cup with you. There's the LA Galaxy have Tigres tomorrow, which I don't really think that is going to go all that well for our friends at the LA Galaxy. But the ones I wanted to talk about were Miami LAFC, Pumas Vancouver. Let's hit Pumas Vancouver real quick. I believe that one is tied 1. Yeah, it's tied 1-1 after the first leg. Brian White scored one, and then Coco Carrasquilla, Houston Dynamo legend, tied it. Vancouver's looked like one of the best teams in the league season so far. How do you like their chances against Pumas?
Oh, man, it's tough because they should have won this game, and that would have gave them a great advantage, right? Because the Coco Carrasquilla's goal is way late. I think it's 87 minutes of a set piece that he should have never been able to strike a ball that open in that specific moment, but he did. At Pumas, Stadio Olimpico is unreal. The situation for Vancouver does get tougher. I think that they do have a chance, though. They're offensively, they've been, I believe, the highest scoring team in the Western Conference right now. I feel like they have a great balance of their midfield. Pedro Vita has been unreal. I think that White is in a moment that he can score anytime that he gets a chance to. But it's a tough ask. I'm gonna go ahead and say that Pumas wins this one. I just feel like at home, with what they've been able to show you already, they're going to be more aggressive. They're going to try to pin back Vancouver. They're going to obligate them to play off a transition. I think Pumas just has a little bit too much firepower, specifically for this Vancouver team. But I hope I'm wrong, because they have been really good, and they played a hell of a game at home. But we've seen firsthand what happens when you don't take care of business at home and you wait for that second leg.
Yeah, the Carrasquilla goal was killer. If you're able to see that game out and take the 1-0, you still have a difficult task in front of you. But I think like psychologically, morale wise, like you're feeling pretty good. You know that you can beat this team. And I think, they still know that they can hang with Pumas, but it's like you said, it's just a big ask for them.
And the away goal is big in CONCACAF, right?
Exactly.
CONCACAF Champions Cup, right? So you got an away goal, and that doubles the importance of that goal by Coco.
A team that was able to hold off their CCC opposition from getting that away goal was LAFC. They are leading Inter Miami 1-0 on aggregate going into leg 2 at Chase Stadium in the thriving metropolis of Fort Lauderdale. That was a great result, and honestly a great performance for LAFC. You can have a 1-0 that is like fluky and you get the goal against the run of play when you were under pressure the whole time. That was not the case. I think that is the best defensive effort I've seen from an MLS club against Messi and the Barca boys so far. They shut him out and they got the goal to go ahead. All that being said, Nico, I still don't like their chances all that much. I think having a 1-goal lead against Messi and the Barca boys playing on the road. Really, like, it's just, I feel like it's not enough. Like, all Inter Miami needs to do is score one goal, and then the series is just right up in the air again. Like that basically would undo all the work that LAFC did in the first leg. What do you think? Do you think LAFC can see this out, or do you? I think Inter Miami is still going to win it. I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
No, I think Miami is still the favorite in this one. Like you mentioned, the 1-0 lead might not be enough. There is the possibility of that away goal being a big one, because if LAFC does get on the scoreboard, Miami will be obligated to score 2. So that's a big thing. I feel like there are some weaknesses to Miami defensively. The right back position has been an issue, regardless of who plays it there. I expect Falcon and Allen to be back at center back, because this weekend with Toto Aviles being a guy that is more of a gambler in the way he handles the center back position, those are spaces where in the mid spaces, Danny Buanga is going to make you pay. If you have a guy like Toto just getting too far forward, trying to anticipate one too many passes. But I think that offensively, Miami is just too good. And I don't expect Messi to look as mortal as he did in the first leg. I think that Segovia continues to play well and continues to build on his character. Luis Suarez is going to be a big problem in this one. They play differently at home. They pin him up top a little bit more. I feel like they're going to be aggressive. And although LAFC is more than happy to play against the round of play, and they don't mind playing deep, they don't mind playing off of the counter, I just think that inviting that sort of pressure from a talented team like Miami is just playing with fire. So I do think that Miami ends up getting the win here. But again, that away goal might be a big one. If they can get one off of a set piece, or off of a Denny Buanga moment, or maybe La Perla Martinez has another one of those unreal goals. He happens to take the rabbit out of his hat. They might put Miami under some pressure.
Yeah, Miami, just in general, the last 2 games they've played, they have not looked as world-beating as they usually do. They drew Toronto FC 1-1 last night.
Toronto should have won that game.
Yeah. Messi got a goal, but like Miami didn't. They didn't look. They've been a juggernaut so far this year. Like, clearly the best team in the league, and they have not looked like that these last 2 games. So maybe that is a lifeline for LAFC. Maybe they get it done. I definitely they're in as good a position as you could hope to be going against this team. And like I said, like the nature of the result they took in the first leg, that's the type of performance that can galvanize you and make you really feel like you can not just play with that team, but beat that team. They literally did beat that team, and they outplayed them like soundly in that game. So it can be done, but I just think that this Inter Miami team, when they hit their top gear, I mean, it looks like what San Diego did to Seattle, but like even a level above that.
Yeah.
I mean, when Messi and the Barca boys and company are playing at their top capacity, it's the most like unstoppable looking MLS club I've ever seen. So
yeah,
we'll see if they can find that in the second leg. Nico, I think we can call it right there. Another great Lobbing Scorchers kickoff. Any last thoughts on the Sounders or MLS or anything before we get out of here? Anything you want to plug?
No, I think we hit it all. It was exciting. Last week, I got together with a FIFA official, and we had a meeting about the expectation for the Sounders during Club World Cup. They seem to be very happy with the atmosphere, the transport, everything that surrounds the event. And they mentioned that they're hoping that Seattle is the biggest draw, that the Sounders do come out and have the best atmosphere. So I put my reputation on the line. I said that I had no doubt about that. And I know that the times of kickoff are awful, and I know that the prices of the tickets are hard to come by, and they're very expensive. But as a stout soccer community, I really hope that everybody gets out there and does an effort to go to one or two of the games at least. And ECS has a huge platform, a global lens on top of them, to show the marches and the chants and the tifos. So it was exciting to talk to FIFA official and kind of get a sense of what they're expecting out of the whole thing. I got to see the ball, the official tournament ball. That was kind of cool. But yeah, so just reaching out to the fans and hoping that they all show up for those 3 games at Lumen Field.
Great stuff. All right, everybody, we're gonna get out of here on that. Thank you so much for tuning in and starting your week off with us here on Lobbing Scorchers Kickoff. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, become a YouTube member, like, comment, rate 5 stars, tell all your friends. I will see you. We're going to drop the L pod tomorrow, and then I'll be back at it Thursday night, 7:30, Lobbing Scorchers under the lights. I'll catch you guys then. Peace.
The Seattle Sounders' brand new 2025 kit is here. Inspired by 2 traditional Southern Coast Salish weaving techniques, twilling and twinning. These techniques, passed down through generations, honor the resilience, deep-rooted ties, and creativity that define the cultural fabric of this region. The striking deep blue jersey will be worn by the Sounders for the next 2 seasons to honor the club's deep connection with the Puget Sound and shared responsibility as stewards of the greater Salish Sea watershed. Backing up that commitment, the Seattle Sounders will donate up to $50,000 to benefit community charities around the Puget Sound region. To get your very own Salish Sea kit, visit lobbingscorchers.com/kit. That's lobbingscorchers.com/KIT.